Because you constantly perceive my mom as picking on you, you feel victimized, don't you? But in reality, my mom is just trying to impart lessons on how to be a good wife. It's unfair for you to portray yourself as the victim. When I conveyed to my husband that I was enduring bullying from his mom, he responded with a surprising remark. He justified his mother's actions, explaining that her refusal to eat the food I cook and her habit of dropping hanging laundry on the ground were intended as lessons to help me become a better wife. He glanced at me, bewildered, and chuckled, making a rather absurd statement. My name is Ava, a 29-year-old office worker at a pharmaceutical company. I married my husband, who was a senior at my university 2 years ago. Unfortunately, both my parents passed away around the time of my university graduation. Being their only child and with no close relatives, I found myself alone. The attendees at their funeral were mostly acquaintances and friends, as my parents weren't close to their relatives. Shortly after, I started working at the company that hired me as a fresh graduate, and my husband and I crossed paths through a mutual friend. Perhaps he felt sorry for me, given my circumstances at the time. I found solace in my husband's support after losing my parents, and he consistently brought me to his parents' house even from the early stages of our relationship. His parents warmly welcomed me, particularly his mother, who treated me like her own daughter. This made me believe that our relationship would remain strong even after marriage. Despite my intention to continue working after having kids, the absence of available daycare options became a concern, given my parents' passing. When I shared this with my husband, he reassured me, stating that his mother had offered to care for the children. Consequently, we decided to live with his parents, with only my father-in-law being away for work. Initially, everything went smoothly, but the dynamics changed over time. As 2 years passed without me getting pregnant, my mother-in-law's attitude towards me shifted. I repeatedly heard remarks like, "Ava, as the youngest in this house, you should be responsible for all the housework." This directive was enforced every weekend, with tasks ranging from cleaning the house to doing laundry for her. Despite my proactive approach to housework, she seemed displeased. To my dismay, she intentionally dropped the laundry I hung and added leftover food or oil to clean dishes. Despite my continuous efforts to clean, she consistently finds fault and insists on rewashing the dishes. Adding to the distress, she incessantly nitpicks and complains about not seeing her grandchildren yet. This situation has already been breaking my heart, and what makes it worse is that my husband shows no understanding. Despite my numerous attempts to convey my mother-in-law's harassment and nitpicking, my husband dismisses my concerns, stating that I am overthinking and being paranoid. Perhaps since my mother-in-law wasn't openly harassing me in front of him at that time, he found it hard to believe his own mother could engage in such behavior. Regardless, his dismissive response, portraying his mother as the victim and me as the wrongdoer, made me realize I had no support in this house. Once my mother-in-law discovered my husband's disbelief, her mistreatment escalated. While previously she harassed me discreetly when my husband wasn't around, nowadays she openly curses and harasses me even in his presence. Despite recently getting pregnant and moving past the challenging morning sickness in my second trimester, I find little relief. The overall situation continues to take a toll on my well-being. During my maternity leave, I've been enduring relentless bullying from my mother-in-law, and to make matters worse, my husband not only refuses to believe me, but also seems to join in on disparaging me more and more, echoing his mother's behavior. Initially, when he learned about my pregnancy, he was genuinely happy, but now he has aligned himself with his mother, degrading me by saying things like, "You're just a woman who doesn't work and only eats and sleeps." Aware that stress isn't good for the baby, I felt helpless in this situation, with my husband being the only person I could turn to for help. Desperate, I once again shared the terrible things his mother was doing to me and implored him to stop looking down on me, for both my sake and the baby's. Choosing a weekend to address the issue, I confronted him while he was relaxing in the living room. "Honey, I need to talk to you," I said. He looked up from his phone with disinterest. I expressed my concerns about the hurtful remarks and his mother's harassment, urging him to acknowledge and intervene. However, he seemed dismissive, claiming that I was taking things too seriously and that his mother's actions weren't harassment at all, claiming that throwing away the untouched food I prepare and purposefully creating a mess in my room aren't forms of harassment is what you're telling me. My mother-in-law's actions, as per your perspective, are supposedly teaching me to become a great wife. I struggled to comprehend his words, and my vision blurred while I felt a wave of dizziness. Placing my hand on my belly involuntarily, I couldn't fathom raising my child in an environment with such distorted values. The mindset of my husband and his mother would undoubtedly negatively impact my child once born. What they consider normal is incredibly challenging for me, and I can't bear it any longer. Even my tearing cries failed to reach him, receiving only a mocking laugh in return. Already on the brink, I was pushed further when he casually suggested I leave if I hated it so much. Stunned for a moment, I quickly retorted, holding my belly, "What are you talking about? I'm pregnant right now." His response was a pout, as if saying, "So what?" He coldly laughed out loud, seemingly realizing something. "That's right. You don't have anywhere to go if you get kicked out of this house. I'm sorry, but you don't have your parents or their house, so you have no place to go." His cold laughter echoed in the distance. I clenched my lip, shooting a fierce glare at my husband, enveloped in a surge of anger. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I questioned sharply. My intense gaze seemed to pierce his heart, leaving him visibly perturbed. Declaring my departure, I announced, "I'm going back to my own home." To my surprise, my husband erupted into laughter, amused by my decision. He mockingly suggested, "If you think you can go home, you can try. You'll be sleeping outside, right? Why make it sound like going home is such a good thing?" Undeterred by his mockery, I retrieved a large travel bag from my closet, methodically packing my belongings, including clothes and essentials. My husband, oblivious to my determination, assumed I had no alternative residence besides his mother's house. Despite his belief that my departure was a mere act of stubbornness, I was resolute in my decision. As I packed, my mother-in-law intervened, echoing my husband's sentiments about following their rules. She hinted that if I disliked their house, I should leave. Unmoved, I asserted that I had no intention of returning to her house. My resolve was clear. After leaving, I would establish a new life and promptly send divorce papers. With my belongings packed and my decision made, I bid my mother-in-law and husband farewell with a quiet murmur. Determined to shield my child from these tumultuous relationships, I vowed not to let anyone see my baby. I had chosen to raise my child independently. The first year outside their house passed swiftly, marking the beginning of a new chapter in my life. I successfully welcomed my baby girl into the world, navigating the challenges of unfamiliar motherhood entirely on my own. Not once did I return to my mother-in-law's house. 2 months after departing, I initiated the divorce process by sending the papers to my husband, who reluctantly accepted, making our separation official. Simultaneously, I sought child support, but he has yet to contribute anything. It appears I may have to resort to legal avenues to address this matter. Despite the lingering emotional weight, I began to feel a sense of relief. As I looked up at the towering condominium ahead, adorned with a prominent sign declaring it a show home, I noticed others like me, interested in exploring the available living spaces. Motivated by the desire for a more convenient lifestyle, especially considering the distance from my current residence to both my workplace and the daycare in the area, I had decided to purchase a condo before re-entering the workforce. This inclination stemmed from the aspiration to establish a stable home for myself and my child. Fortuitously, financial constraints were not an issue, and I had more than enough resources to secure a condo. Upon arriving at the reception desk on the first floor, I was informed that they would guide me through the penthouse. Following their directions, I entered the elevator, which swiftly ascended to the 40th floor. When the doors opened, I was taken aback. To my surprise, the person designated to show me the property turned out to be my ex-husband. In our married days, he had been employed at a stock company, and I found myself wondering when he had changed professions. The awkwardness between us was palpable, both of us momentarily at a loss for words. He probably never anticipated encountering me in a setting like this. His demeanor visibly betrayed a sense of unease, and his eyes wandered. Particularly noteworthy given our location on the top floor of a high-rise condo. This exclusive area is reserved for those genuinely interested in making a purchase. As my ex-husband, now playing the role of an awkward salesperson, offered a strained smile, he commenced the tour of the penthouse. While his words maintained a gentle tone, the occasional glances he shot my way betrayed a curiosity about my unexpected presence. Despite our mutual discomfort, the penthouse itself was undeniably magnificent. Situated conveniently close to my office and featuring an underground path leading directly to the daycare, this high-end condo also boasted a park on the property and a 24-hour underground supermarket. The surrounding environment left nothing to be desired, providing an ideal setting for me to single-handedly raise my child. Confident in my decision, I declared my intent to purchase the penthouse, leaving my ex-husband momentarily stunned. Anticipating the possibility of finding a suitable residence, I had come prepared to sign the contract promptly. However, to my surprise, my ex-husband failed to produce the necessary paperwork, leaving me waiting in suspense. As I poised to inquire, his lips betrayed a subtle tremor, casting a disconcerting shadow over the moment. The unfolding events seemed almost surreal. "What?" he exclaimed, his face a canvas of mixed emotions. The expression etched on his features neither conveyed anger nor jealousy, but rather an accusatory incredulity. He seemed to insinuate, "Could you have possibly caught the attention of a wealthy man, or taken up a secretive job you can't disclose to others?" Instinctively, he drew closer, prompting me to take a step back. "No way," I responded defensively, explaining that I had recently sold my parents' house and unexpectedly gained more funds than anticipated. He arched an eyebrow, evidently puzzled. "Your parents' house?" I began narrating the events of the past year, detailing how I had sought refuge at my parents' house after leaving his mother's residence, living there alone since their passing. Despite the spaciousness of the house, it became impractical for a sole occupant. I highlighted the Japanese-style garden my father had crafted, suggesting it added value to the property. Before our baby's arrival, an offer to purchase the house emerged. The prospective buyer, a renowned affluent individual, was captivated by the Japanese-style garden, but indifferent toward the house's condition. The substantial sum offered for the property led to a swift decision to sell. I acknowledged his skepticism, recognizing the age and visible signs of deterioration in the old house. I initially believed the proceeds would sustain me for only a short period. However, the buyer's affluence transformed my financial outlook. My ex-husband's incredulous question regarding the affordability of the penthouse now seemed reasonable, given the circumstances surrounding the sale of the house. The prospective buyer expressed a willingness to pay 5 times more than the average market price for the house, solely due to the captivating allure of the garden. I found it somewhat surprising, given my initial belief that my father's hobby wouldn't be highly valued in this manner. I took the opportunity to clarify that the garden was a product of my father's passion, not a professional landscaper's expertise. Repeatedly, I emphasized that since returning to the house, my efforts were limited to basic yard maintenance, such as weed removal during my exercises. I candidly admitted that the trees were not in their most aesthetically pleasing state. In response, the wealthy man insisted that he appreciated the garden's inherent qualities, asserting that the foundation was solid. Intriguingly, he preferred the prospect of customizing it to his taste through his personal gardener, rather than commissioning an entirely new design. While I struggled to comprehend his approach, considering his substantial financial means, he was resolute in his desire to acquire the property. Given the buyer's insistence and his first-hand assessment of the garden, I ultimately decided to part with the house. Surprisingly, the wealthy man, sensing a potential displacement, expressed concern for my well-being and provided additional funds for living expenses. This gesture went beyond the already generous offer, which was 5 times the market value. Consequently, I relocated to an apartment near my parents' house temporarily. The newfound financial stability allowed me to focus wholeheartedly on caring for my baby without the burden of immediate employment concerns. Upon hearing my narrative, a subtle twinkle appeared in his eyes, and a noticeable shift in his demeanor ensued. He lowered his head gently and offered a sincere apology for our past, coupled with a proposition to rekindle our relationship. His face exuded confidence, convinced that my acceptance was inevitable. However, I remained steadfast and declined the proffered hand. "I can manage on my own and live without you. I have no inclination to share my life with someone who condescends to others," I asserted firmly. In that moment, his face transformed from confidence to one painted with rage. A quick flush of red overcame him as he glared at me. "Are you saying no when I'm willing to remarry you?" he retorted, clearly agitated. The staff member, who held the contract papers, peered cautiously from behind my ex-husband. Perhaps concerned about the prolonged conversation while standing, he looked visibly uneasy. I acknowledged the staff member with a slight bow, but my ex-husband appeared oblivious to the gesture. He went on to express a narrow-minded perspective, asserting that it was inappropriate for a woman to be affluent, suggesting they should quietly attend to domestic matters behind men. The staff member's face paled at this condescending viewpoint. It seemed he intended to intervene, but my gaze alone dissuaded him. I sighed, addressing my ex-husband. "Is this the extent of your aspirations? Do you now disdain me for being successful? It would be more fitting for you to remain a lifelong servant in a husband's house." With that, I redirected my attention to the staff member who stood motionless, holding a stack of contracts and manuals. Shopping for something valuable from a company that has a stock, making such a statement, is not an acceptable practice. It was only when I vocalized my objection that my ex-husband finally turned around. The staff member I had been conversing with hurriedly approached me, bowing repeatedly and almost scattering the documents in the process. Apologetically, he acknowledged his colleague's rudeness and insisted that my ex-husband also apologize. At the insistence of the boss, my ex-husband, seemingly realizing the gravity of the situation, prostrated himself on the floor alongside his colleague, lowering his forehead and knees. They pleaded for forgiveness, urging me to stop and asking me to raise my head. Despite their remorseful display, I remained resolute, declaring my intention to explore other condominium options. The expressions on their faces shifted from remorse to despair upon hearing my decision. As they desperately attempted to salvage the situation, my ex-husband implored, "Wait, I take back everything I said, please at least sign this contract." However, I firmly declined, pointing out the inconsistency of expecting me to sign a contract after uttering offensive remarks. My ex-husband, disappointed by my response, hung his head. The outcome was apparent. He had lost because his only capability seemed to be looking down on people. It occurred to me that his boss might have harbored hopes that the deal would progress positively, given the prior marital connection. While I was the one who intervened, it was my ex-husband who allowed the situation to spiral out of control, unleashing harsh words upon the customer. Although I admired everything about the condo, from its location to the floor plan, I felt compelled to make a difficult choice. I couldn't bring myself to financially support a company with individuals who exhibited such behavior. Leaving them in their state of remorse, I exited the room, determined to explore other options. Quietly, I boarded the elevator, leaving the condo without any farewells. I resisted the urge to look back, setting my sights on new possibilities as I walked away in search of other show homes. Subsequently, the repercussions for my ex-husband went beyond losing a major contract. His verbal abuse towards a customer proved to be a significant issue. News of his demotion and salary reduction spread throughout the workplace, prompting gossip. Eventually, he was compelled to resign. In the aftermath of his departure, the job market proved unkind, leading him down a path of heavy drinking and gambling. My mother-in-law, I learned, had taken on the responsibility of caring for him. On a chance encounter at the supermarket, my son revealed that he remained jobless, residing at home and treating his mother poorly. Despite her apologies for past transgressions, my mother-in-law beseeched me to remarry him and return. However, I was quick to dismiss the notion, suggesting that she leave the house if she found the living situation undesirable. Witnessing the hopeless expression on her face brought me a sense of contentment. After securing a different condo, I located a suitable daycare facility and resumed my professional life. The proceeds from selling my parents' house and accumulated savings provided a comfortable financial cushion for single parenting. Despite the financial stability, I decided to return to work as I genuinely enjoyed my job. The company welcomed me back. And now, on the brink of a promotion, I find myself juggling the demands of work and parenting. Despite the challenges, I am living a fulfilling life.